It begins, as all endings do, in silence. The world itself hesitates, paused on the verge of dissolution, echoing with the aftermath of grandeur. Skeleton archways crumble, their stonework webbed by absence, marking the borderlands of a kingdom forgotten by all save those damned to remember. The air tastes of old iron, thick with the stench of unraveling time. At the world's edge, a lone figure ascends from the dust, bereft of name, history etched only in scars and relics. Armor, pieced from remnants of once fabled orders, clatters against flesh that has forgotten warmth. The path ahead unfurls as a ribbon of ruination through veil after veil of cataclysm's debris. This figure, the last link, carries a burden neither self-chosen nor self-explained. On their finger, a knotted band of tarnished gold is engraved with runes too worn to read, but too insistent to forget. The cycle is broken. Oaths have failed. Only the journey remains. To walk the fragments of a dying world, find what still holds, and tether an ending worthy of memory. Each step is annotated in ash, marked along the trail by sunken statues. Sentinels once tasked with vigilance, now absorbed by the wasteland they were meant to oppose. Their mouths are frozen mid-lament. No birds sing here. The sky is a bruise stretched across infinity. Ancient storms gather memory like dust, writhing in the residue of wars no historian dared to complete. The last link understands only this. The world is not simply ending. It is yearning, aching for closure, and fearing what closure may cost. Time in the broken age does not progress. It pools. Across the valley beyond that skeletal arch, the world gathers its relics into eddies of regret. Fallen keeps lie with ramparts torn to stumps by winds that whisper only of defeat. A battlefield sprawls where dawn never finished rising, its soil veined with the calcified blood of vanished hosts. The last link moves through these ruins, bearing witness to silent histories. A shattered sword rests, its hilt bound by faded ribbon, and its blade inscribed with the memory of a battle lost thrice. Nearby, a cryptic idol sits among the roots of a petrified corpse, half heraldic lion, half melted wax. A ring of glass glints between stone and moss, perfectly round but hairline cracked, capturing reflections of an unnamed city fire. In the shadow of these ruins, the lost bells toll. Their resonance is felt, not heard, vibrating through each stone, skittering along the bones of the landscape. These bells wrench sanity astray, their influence rendering the last link aimless, yet determined to continue. The ruins of the Abbey of Entropy, once a keeper of sacred laws, now slant at unnatural angles, overgrown with fungus. Moss climbs defunct altars where priestly hosts once bartered safety for obedience. Remnants of gospel linger among scattered pages, legends of broken chains and breathless legacy. The last link sifts these fragments, collecting whispers and sorrow to fill empty pockets. The journey behind is ash. The journey ahead can only be ember. As dusk bleeds into endless waning, the last link enters the mirror fields. The ground is treacherous, a labyrinth of broken glass stretching as far as the dim horizon. Each shard refracts the world above in crooked symmetry, distorting horizon, traveler, memory. This is the graveyard of reflection, shaped by an age obsessed with remembrance and terrified of forgetting. Long ago, kings sacrificed their shadows upon these grounds, fearing that their histories might outlive their flesh. Servants, beasts, and children alike committed the ritual until every field was choked in splinters and sorrow. Reflections multiply as the last link walks. A crown adorns one phantom, armor fused to bone shadows another, and an unnamed child flickers across a shard before vanishing. Lost possibilities, severed chains, surface as visions and then recede, irretrievable. A sudden gust brings a sharp cry from no living throat, but from the glass itself. The sound is memory folded into matter. Vows renounced, songs uncomposed, wars surrendered. The last link gathers these echoes, forming a tapestry not of lineage or legacy, but a mission. At the heart of the fields, the last great mirror tree stands, both bare and infinite, its roots ensnared in glass. Tarnished metals of lost empires hang from its branches, and every lineage that once bound the world together is etched on its bark, crossed out by time's famine. At its base lies the Mosaic Codex, a book without words, its pages scarred where memory once tried, and failed, to abide. The last link kneels in silence. The wind hushes and the glass murmurs questions. What endures when all chains are gone, and what shape does memory assume? The journey carries the last link onward through a borderland defined not by stone or soil, but by the residual warmth of forgotten bonds. Beneath collapsed arches and shattered mosaics, the land gives way to a long, winding descent, a spiral of debris both natural and deliberate, as if the earth itself once tried to rebuild something after catastrophe. Eventually, the ground flattens, opening into the remnants of a forge vast enough to have once birthed destinies. The roof has long collapsed, daylight scattered into rays by layers of drifting ash and fractured beams. Hammerheads and broken tongs litter the floor, each rusted and immobile, their purpose surrendered to the silence. In one corner, molten silver leaks from a cracked cauldron and hardens into filigreed patterns across the soot, sketching cryptic maps between old scars. Here in the heart of the forge, monuments line the walls, shields warped into spirals, chainmail woven together as tapestry, swords fused into single bars of impure metal. Each bears the signature of an era, an empire, a family, a companionship lost. Blackened anvil stones are inscribed with ancient verses, barely legible. The bond unbroken is the weight the world cannot carry. Yet all brittle links yearn for memory, even in shattering. Across this expanse, the last link feels kinship with the refuse, a longing not for glory, but for reconciliation. In the forge's core sits a cracked medallion, veins of gold threading through corroded iron. Etchings reveal a web of interlocking symbols, each one a link, each one once part of a chain severed by famine, war, or betrayal. Lifting the medallion, the last link senses the echo of old rituals performed here. The walls remember the clangor of labor, the trembling hope of creation, the isolation that followed each failure. A single black feather rests by the medallion, evidence that something with wings once tried, and could not repair, the world's broken connections. The last link carries the medallion and feather, feeling the weight of every connection ever lost. As footsteps retreat from the forge, a cold certainty settles. To be the last link is not merely to endure, but to become archive and engine of remembrance at once. The spiral ascent leaves the forge behind, worlds of memory pressing in with every step. The land grows darker, horizon fractured, and above, the bruised sky stitches itself anew. Leaving the forge behind, the last link traverses a shifting corridor where relics of devotion clutter the soil, broken tokens, fragments of banners, medallions scorched by forgotten fires. The pilgrimage is marked not by linear progress, but by the steady unraveling of what loyalty once meant in a kingdom now grown hostile to connection. Along the way, old paths congeal and then dissolve, the terrain itself unstable, a procession of stone steps contorted into spirals, rivers of mud calcified mid-flow. Above, the bruised sky knits and unravels in rhyme with the traveler's longing for structure among entropy. Along cliffs, statues merge into the landscape, anonymous visages eroding into indistinct forms. Some seem to reach for the last link, others bow their heads in final surrender. Echoes rise, mournful yet intent. The wind carries the memory of oaths sworn in good faith and broken for reasons lost to history. Here, amid the pilgrimage, it becomes clear that the world's disintegration is also its chronicler. Each collapsing monument inscribes a new record in the dust. The pilgrimage leads the last link through the remains of a great theater, its stage littered with shredded tapestries and gutted lanterns. In the rotting seats, illusions of an audience appear and disperse. silhouettes of those who watched kingdoms fall, who cheered or cursed the fall of empires, whose voices remain only as motes of dust caught in dying sunlight. At the heart of the theater sits a throne, empty, ancient, built from interlocking helms. The last link stands before it, every step echoing years of abandonment. On the throne is a relic, an unbroken link of iron, solitary and gleaming amidst a rubbish of broken remnants. When the last link approaches, the throne quakes, sending a shockwave through the riddled chamber. A chorus of wind and shifting stone sounds a requiem for what was, even as what remains struggles to assert meaning. With medallion, feather, and iron link now collected, the last link is transformed. The world outside contracts in anticipation, its collapse arrested only by the traveler's persistent motion. In this sacred locale, surrounded by testaments to loyalty and betrayal, the last link finds not closure, but the weight and necessity to continue. The last link departs the crumbling theater, crossing a desert of jagged stone where no roads remain. The sky, once bruised, now glimmers with intermittent pulses of light, half remnant, half promise. With every step, the pilgrim is battered by winds, heavy with memory and regret. The land below scarred by failed attempts at rebuilding, reforming, renewing. Further on, the terrain shifts again, rising into a colossal gorge carved by ancient floods, its layered faces etched with ruin and hope. Ghostly remnants of bridges arch overhead, shattered into fragmented lines, each one a broken span between forgotten shores. The last link surveys these thresholds, suspecting that each was once crossed by those who sought a connection never quite achieved. Within the depths of the gorge, striated walls shimmer faintly under scattered embers. Fossilized organs of beasts and saints alike are imprinted within stone, signatures of those who tried to stitch the broken realm together, who failed, but were immortalized by their intention as much as their defeat. At the gorge's center is a well, seemingly bottomless, its rim adorned by chain fragments and talismans made from bone and tarnished gold. The last link kneels before the well, offering the medallion, feather, and iron link in silent tribute. For a moment, the world stills. The hush is so profound it presses against the senses like deep water. From the well's throat, a cold wind rises, bearing the hidden truth. Links are not meant solely to bind, but also to be broken, reforged, or abandoned. The cycle is inherent in connection itself. The last link rises, burdened by new understanding. Memory does not heal the splits, but it honors them, offers a map to navigate the aftermath. A tremor runs through the landscape as the relics are accepted by the abyss. The world seems to listen, then to shift. Out of the hollow, faint light stirs. The embers of tomorrow, not yet claimed but indestructible, carried on the breath of those who choose persistence against desolation. From the gorge, the last link ascends, senses altered by a memory not entirely their own. The journey trails inward and upward, through labyrinths shaped from petrified roots, tunnels veined with silver light, and chambers of silence, wherein the dust itself spirals in ritual. The relics surrendered to the chasm weigh not less, but differently, as though the traveler's very marrow now encases their essence. The world above shifts. Where famine once choked the soil, now pale grass stirs, uncertain but present. From the edges of the landscape rise remnants of old towers, their outlines softened by new growth. Structures born of mourning and endurance fuse into strange sculptures, part architecture, part memorial, shaped not by kings, but by the persistence of those who outlast catastrophe. Across the rising terrain, visions flicker, lines of past pilgrims walking in ghostly procession, the ruins behind them giving way to faint blooms of crimson and gold. Even the sky, heavy for eons, fractures into washes of blue among bruised clouds. The last link feels the world's pulse and begins, haltingly, to imagine that something might come after the broken age, something not promised, but fought for with each step, each fragment carried and released. As the journey continues, the environment echoes transformation. Rivers chart new courses amid beds of shattered glass. Seeds germinate in the shelter of collapsed walls. Winds pull motes of ember toward places where light hungers to return. Tentatively, cycles restart, not repeating, but evolving. A stone arch crowns the next horizon, intricate, incomplete, its glyphs carved not in prophecy, but in testament to endurance. Each symbol marks a name remembered. Each gap signifies those lost. The last link crosses beneath this arch, feet stirring dust and root, but the ground no longer threatens collapse. Instead, it supports, invites, trembles with anticipation. Up ahead, a field glows with pallid embers, scattered and stubborn, a map of possibility and memory. The last link advances, not unburdened, but ready. In a world where all chains have failed, the path becomes a choice, a promise to continue forging links even as every other age succumbs to breaking. And so the journey proceeds, not toward a final end, but into open time, where every footstep is a link, every memory a bridge, every scar an invitation to persistence. Years pass. The land loses some of its former desolation, and the archway at the horizon bears new marks, aggregates of old glyphs and the simple carvings of fresh hands. The last link is no longer alone. The legend has become pattern and possibility. Wanderers arrive with relics of their own, seeking not the restoration of past ages, but the threads of something different. In the twilight, embers float over fields and broken roads, pale reminders of power and hope made humble by history. Not a single chain reforged, not a lost age resurrected, but something new congealing where endings once ruled without question. Stone towers crumble, but seedlings push through their debris, roots anchoring in the memory of collapse. The last link gathers seeds and stories. The path wanders through shrines dedicated to failure, groves born of longing, and cairns built atop rusted helms to honor persistence as much as bravery. The world remains scarred, misshapen, full of reminders, yet those scars are now guideposts instead of tombs. Within the forge's ruins, silver veins fluoresce faintly each dusk, the medallion's pattern echoed forever on the stone. Black feathers drift in the breeze, talismans of failed connection that define the shape of resilience. Above all, the burden has shifted. It is the weight carried not by a lone figure, but by all who walk thereafter, united not by perfection or restoration, but by persistence and memory. The last link becomes the first step of what follows, a chain not meant to hold, but to guide.